Why, hello, boils and ghouls. It's Jeff with the Horror Fiend. This has been a long time coming. It has been something that I've been working on in a while. I'm bringing an interview today with the amazingly talented and awesome Mr. C. Ernst Harth. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And thank you for being on the show. We definitely appreciate it. I know we've been trying to do this for a few weeks now and things have come up, so I definitely appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm going to jump right into the meat and potatoes of everything. Like the first question I like to ask everybody, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you as well. What got you into acting? What made you decide you wanted to be an actor?
Well, there's two parts of that. There's the acting for acting's sake, and then there's the professional actor. As far as acting, I've always been the silly clown at home. I was always, a bit of a goof, try seeking attention, whatever. And when I started school, I did not know that the school that I went to, they did a Christmas. My brain just died. An
Happens to me all the
assembly,
time.
Christmas, a Christmas assembly, Christmas pageant, where they had a tradition that the largest kid in the school played Santa Claus every year. You know, you could take that as, you could take that either way. It's like, why are you bullying the kid because he's the biggest kid in the school? But I got asked to be Santa Claus. I was in kindergarten. I had just started the school. It was K to 5, and I was the largest kid in the school. And so you have this Christmas pageant with grade 4s and 5s mainly in it. And Santa Claus, the main guy of the play, is a little kindergarten kid sitting there. And so uh, I was basically thrust on the stage without even any choice in the matter, really. I was like, you're the largest kid in the school, you're Santa Claus, go. And there was something, I don't know. First of all, having all that attention, the whole school looking at me, that was a high that I'd never experienced. And being on stage with people that were in grade 4 and 5, which were, in all comparison, they might as well have been grown-ups for me. I was in kindergarten and I was like the boss of the play. So, there was like this level of excitement over the fact that I had the whole school looking at me and I'm in charge of the grade 4s and grade 5s, and I'm just a little punk in kindergarten. I just happened to be monstrous in size, I guess. I mean, when I went into grade 6, I was 6'3", 286. So I've always I've always been big. But
Yeah.
that is how I got into acting. I got thrust into acting, and then I continued to do school plays and drama club and what have you through school and improv. And a friend of mine, we used to do theater, like improv games and stuff. We'd go to the old age home, to the nursing homes, and we would do like a little improv performance, and then we'd have the people do little improv games. We'd get them to do sound effects, all basically just to, to wake them up out of their stupor, because they basically get put in those homes and then just left to rot, sadly. So we just went in there to brighten up their spirits for an hour or so. So I did all that kind of stuff during high school, and then I moved to Vancouver, Canada, the other side of Canada, because I was living in just outside of Toronto, Canada at the time. And we moved to Vancouver when I was 19, just me and a buddy on a bus. That's a trip, 4.5 days on a bus. And we got out here, and I was working at a nightclub as a doorman, because when you're my size, that's the job you can get anywhere. Yeah. And two women approached me one night, and they said, "Are you in the film industry?" What? I am doorman. I work here. Oh, you got an interesting face. I think we could do something with you. Why don't you give us a call and we'll talk about it? And they handed me a card, and I just thought to myself, whatever, a bunch of chicks just trying to pick me up. Never mind, whatever. Put the card in my pocket and went on with my night. Got home, threw the card on my desk, and a couple weeks go by. I'm cleaning up my desk, and I come across this card, and I actually read it because I hadn't read it. I just threw it on the desk. It turns out they're talent agents. So I contacted them. What the hell? It can't hurt. The next day, I was at an audition for a commercial, and by the end of the week, I was shooting my first commercial. And I thought, oh my! And this was like the main guy in this. It was for the BC chicken growers. It was basically like the chicken association. It was like their main commercial for the year. And so I was on the back of buses, I was on bus stops, billboards, everything. And it was just like, to go from working in a bar to all of a sudden being treated like a superstar was just, my ego couldn't handle it. I was like, I gotta do this. Of course, then the next three things I did were background work, extra work, and making $5 an hour and treated like crap. So that heavenly walk didn't last very long. But that's how so basically, in many ways, I got thrust into it both times in my life. In kindergarten, that's how I got into acting, was just, you're the biggest kid, go. And then as a grown up, I moved out here and you got an interesting face. And that was all it took. So it's like both times the universe decided you're going to be an actor and you have nothing to do about it. And so that's how I got in that. And then I just, I liked it and I just kept pursuing it and kept pushing and the jobs kept coming. And before you know it, I got over 110 things on my resume. And then I've been doing this for 30 something years.
It's true, and you have an impressive resume. Like you are in some of they're not even called like cult hits anymore. Like you're in Trick or Treat. Okay,
Yeah.
like that's a big movie right now. Everybody loves that movie. It's gotten this resurgence over the past year or so, which is
Yeah.
amazing because it's one of my favorite horror movies. And like not only
Just,
that, but like you're in Valentine, like another one of those things where it's like the horror community absolutely loves that movie too, you know?
and to think that Trick or Treat didn't even get a theatrical release, that it went straight to DVD.
And that's a shame. Like that should have been released on every platform imaginable. And I'm
And there's
hoping,
still, yeah, I'm hoping that, I was just going to say, it's still one of those films that a lot of people have never heard of it. Yet the people who know of it love it.
yeah, it's an amazing film. And we'll come back to that in a second
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're gonna talk about like your big one, which everybody knows is 13 Ghosts.
Mhm.
You were the great child in 13 Ghosts, and that isn't even like a cult movie. Like everybody loves that movie. Like you can mention it to anybody and they'll say, "Oh man, like that movie is so great." And now there's the talks about it having like some sort of a series,
Yeah.
I believe on Netflix. So I wanted to touch base with you about that. Like how is your time working on 13 Ghosts with such big names that were in it, and
Yeah.
give us the breakdown and the rundown of The Great Child.
Well, it started interesting because there were probably 4 or 5 versions of 13 Ghosts before it ever got to picture because, you know, they had the original film from the 60s, the William Castle film,
Mhm.
and they wanted to update that and, bring it into today, but they weren't going to do an exact replica of that one. So I have so many versions. I have a stack of scripts in storage written all different people who wrote. I think I have a version that James Gunn wrote that never got made.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, I have. So there's probably 3 or 4 scripts. I think they bring in these writers as like ghost writers or as cleanup guys to take an older script and to add some stuff to it. So when I originally auditioned for The Great Child, they first of all they just brought us in for auditions, just like a regular audition, all the different roles, and they knew they were going to have a big guy, so it was just all the big scary looking guys coming in. And at that point, the character's name was Couch Potato, and the drawing that they had for him was he died sitting on the couch watching TV, just got huge and died there, and now he's rotting away and he's got rats coming in and out of the holes on his face and
Oh
you see
wow.
his shirt moving underneath and everything and that's what he looked like. And so when I auditioned, it was basically, you couldn't get a simpler audition. It was okay, look at the camera. Now it looks scary. Now, and it was just a bunch of that for 5 minutes. And then, thanks for coming. And that was it. And then I got cast. Then I went into the first production meeting to look at the different concepts and everything. And by this point, the couch potato thing sort of faded. And now the version of script that they had, he was into BDSM, and his dominatrix was this little woman that hangs off the side of him. She's all strapped up to him and everything. And he basically died, had a heart attack, and died and fell on her. And that's how she died. So there's that version. And then it basically, over the next couple versions of the script, it progressed to the point where I was a baby, and this little woman who originally was my dominatrix, now she's my mother. And there's this whole back. And it's funny because I don't think they still even figured it out, because when you watch the movie and you listen to the commentary, you hear Steve Beck and the rest of them describing the backstories. And
Yep.
then you watch the DVD, the special features, and they have the ghost files with F. Murray Abraham narrating the actual backstories, which are completely different from the backstories that they talk about in the DVD commentary. So
Mm-hmm.
from when the movie was made to when the movie came out on DVD, they were still formulating backstories and they could do that sort of because none of that was in the film, you
Yeah.
know? So, and so that's what we eventually came down to. Now, if you remember the book in the movie, The Black Zodiac, and they have the pictures of all the different ghosts.
Yeah. Each one.
Yeah, all that stuff is done so far in pre-production that a lot of times that stuff goes into production based on older scripts. And what I mean by that is, let me grab something here. I just thought of this while I was talking to you. Okay, so sorry, I told you about the old version of the script with the dominatrix and the BDSM and what have you.
Yes.
And then they changed the script to me being the great child, the big boy at the carnival, and his mom's the little dwarf. And I basically I kill everyone because of how they treated her.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Black Zodiac, the big book that they use in the movie, and also for on the website and production stuff, this is how it was presented. And if you look at that, that's got nothing to do
Oh yeah, no,
with,
that's BDSM.
yeah, that's got nothing to do with the great child as he is, being the baby with the axe and the mommy and everything.
Yeah.
So what they used in the Black Zodiac book was based on the previous version of the script, but nobody said anything, and because it wasn't presented any other way than here's a little person and a big person, well, there you go. That's the mother and her child. But the reality was, this is how it was supposed to be originally. So when I finally got hired and booked and everything, and we went in, we did a bunch of makeup tests because they hadn't really figured out the look of this character yet. But we knew that they wanted him in his underwear, or they wanted to give the effect of diaper, but I wasn't actually in diaper. I was in my underwear, and I had the bib and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But we still hadn't really decided on the full effect. So I'm standing outside the trailers talking with Steve, and we're trying to figure out a look for this thing as I go into the makeup trailer, because we're going to do our first camera tests. And Shannon Elizabeth is on her way to the makeup trailer, and she walks by. He calls her over. He says, "Shannon, I'm just doing an informal poll. I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think about the great child? What kind of hair should he have?" My hair at that time was about, I had a big afro almost.
Yeah.
And she says, looking at me, and she says, "Oh, what was that cartoon character? The one in the 60s. He was like a big duck, and he had like a big diaper, and he had like a big," and Steve goes, "Baby Huey?" And she
Baby
goes,
Huey. Yeah.
"Yeah, Baby Huey. He should look like Baby Huey. He should have like the big blonde tuft in the front and everything." And
That's
Steve
great.
goes, "Awesome. Off to makeup you go." So off to the trailer I go. They shaved all my hair off, my big afro all gone, except they left. It's funny now too, because the part that's not there is the part that they left. Hey, I think they ruined my hair because they had to dye it bleach blonde.
Yeah.
And then every 3 days I had to go in to get my roots touched up. So for 3 months, I had to get my hair bleached. So no wonder I have no hair left in the front.
Yeah, it started happening to me too.
So and then the funny part of that was, by the time I came out of the makeup trailer, I looked like a poodle's ass, right? I got the big curl in the front and everything. And when the show started, I was so embarrassed when I'd be off set and be walking around with baseball caps, just trying to hide my hair. And then by the end of the 3 months, you're walking around with little barrettes in your hair. You don't care. You have a story that goes with it, right? It's not just my personal style. But that was the best part. And it's funny because I was talking about how, like with that photo, how so much stuff has to come out in pre-production. There's like such a like with magazines and promotion and stuff, that stuff's already in the planning for months before stuff comes out. So when they did this whole spread in Fangoria, there's a picture in Fangoria where they show me and you present me, here's the picture of the great child. Well, if you look closer, you'll see I don't have a bib on. I got a piece of material tied around my neck to give the impression of a bib. My hair is not dyed yet, so I just have a tuft of brown hair in the front, so it's like, and yet this is what's in Fangoria magazine presented as the great child. So because all this stuff has so much lead time, they get all these pictures out there. But the thing I liked about the great child for me was that he didn't have any lines. I think I like the fact that the ghosts were just scary. They were just all about death. They were all just about destruction. There was no talking. It was just, here we are. And the thing that I liked the most was that none of it was CGI. It was all practical effects. Yep. So, and I think that plays when you see the actors on set, like Matthew Lillard, and when he comes around the corner and he sees a 6'6", 598-pound guy with a bloody axe and puke all over him. There's not much acting involved. He's like, what?
Like, what the hell?
It's not like you're being told there's a tennis ball there, act scared, and then we'll draw the ghost in later. So those reactions were all real. And I think that that helped a lot, was the fact that the ghosts were all practical. They were there on the set with the actors. You're being chased. And I had, thankfully, because it was so hot in that house, the house was made as you see it. So that it was in a studio, a big special effects sound stage, but it was what you see. It was 2,500 panes of glass. It was all that etching was on the glass, all years worked. So the glass would go back and forth, up and down and everything. And because everything was glass upon glass, the roof, the floor, the walls, just imagine trying to film in nothing but glass. You got reflections in every direction. So they had to almost overlight it to block out the reflections. They almost had to overlight everything. And so what that did was it created a heat dome, basically, because it was so hot in that thing. And then they have to turn all the fans off in the studio because they make noise. So it was so hot in there. And I was thankful that all these other ghosts are just covered in latex and makeup. And like the Hammer and the Juggernaut, they've got the big face makeups, but then the whole body, they're basically wearing like a skin suit.
Yeah.
And then the makeup is applied, the whole body outfit, the arms and the stomach and everything is applied to the outside of the skin suit. So at least they could come in the morning and then put on their Hammer and put on their Juggernaut and zip it up in the back. And then they just had to get their hands and their face applied. And that's why it's always funny when you go on IMDb and you see in the trivia notes for, like, it says John DeSantis added 25 pounds of muscle in 5 weeks or something. And no, he didn't. He put it on every morning. He zipped into it.
And this is coming straight from one of the cast members too. So that's debunking all of that. That's great. And so they've got all this makeup. Thankfully, I and the angry princess, we were both basically naked in there. So the only prosthetics, the only makeup I had on, I had 2 little applications that went over my eyebrows to cover them. Because I've been at this long enough, I know that if you shave these off, there's no guarantee they're going to come back as they were. Yeah.
So you're putting makeup over these, but everything else was me. And that's why it was so fun for me when I was on the cover of Fangoria, because I thought, you got all these makeup jobs, all these gory makeup jobs, and here's me on the cover, and I basically just have some some whitewash on me. They drew in some veins and what have you. But I think, and I was the only ghost who didn't have contacts.
Oh wow.
So I'm just, I don't know, I must just look creepy, I guess. And I felt bad for Lori, who played my mother, because she had glaucoma for real. So her one eye,
Oh
which you see
wow.
in the film that's white and cloudy,
Yeah.
is her eye. Okay. And
Wow.
so just think for her whole life, that since she's had glaucoma, nobody ever says anything, because, you don't walk up to people and go, whoa, what's with your eye? It's all funky looking, right? But here on set, people would constantly go up there and go, oh man, I love what they did with your eye. That is so good. Wow. And I kept thinking, man, that's got to be hard to take. People just constantly coming up and talking about your eye when there's nothing wrong. That's your real eye. And, so I was the only one who didn't have contacts and didn't really have makeup, yet there I was on the cover of Fangoria. So that'll always, and that's what makes it weird when I see people who have tattoos of the 13 ghosts, especially the Great Child, because they all look like they're different characters. I just look like me, I think, So I just see a big ass picture of my face on some guy's thigh. It really throws you for a loop. To them, that's the Great Child. That's one of the monsters in their favorite movie, and that's why I'm on their arm or their leg. But to me, it's just my face on a guy's thigh, and it's a little trippy. If I looked like the Hammer and I had spikes coming on my face or whatever, it wouldn't be so different. But it was a great experience. It was a hard shoot, like I said, because of the conditions and because they were shooting the ghost and the cast at the same time. So there were many days, many, where they'd bring us in at like 3 a.m, like usually 4 hours before the rest of the production got there, because we'd
Mhm.
start in the whole makeup process. So we go through the whole makeup process, and there's 12 ghosts. So that's 12 different makeups. And then each of us has 2, 3 makeup people and costume people. So there's a whole team of us. So we'd get through all the makeups. We'd go to set. They had like a little holding area for just the ghosts. And we'd all sit in there with all our people, and we're all ready to go. And then we're slowly, falling apart. The makeup is slowly peeling off, everything, because it's getting hot and everybody's starting to sweat.
Yeah.
And you'd sit there for like 10, 12 hours, and they'd finally come over and they go, oh, I'm sorry, guys. We're not going to get to you guys today.
Oh no.
And then back to the trailers to take everything off, go home, and start over in the morning. And it just be that when that happens 3 or 4 times, not in a row, but when that happens 3 or 4 times at all, it just becomes so daunting for everyone. It's just like, it's like you just want to work. Yeah, your agent will say, well, you're still getting paid. Yeah, but I'm getting paid to work. I'm not getting paid to sit there and watch all this amazing talent, not just me, the artistry that's on me, to see all the work that went into me, and it all just gets wasted, and then start over again the next day. But I guess if the studios have that kind of money to burn, you know, but if you want to bring in Shannon Elizabeth before we do all our takes, and you have to wait all day while she gets her lines right, but that's what's gonna happen.
I guess she gets the pass because of the Baby Huey thing. Like,
Yes,
I
yes,
still
yes.
think that's great. That is an amazing story
Yeah,
because who
that's
else?
that.
Like Shannon Elizabeth is like the reason for that look. Like, that's just awesome. Because like your look, I mean, like you said, like it's not as much detail or everything else like everybody else's, like Hammer, Juggernaut,
Yeah,
Jackal,
yeah, yeah,
nothing like that. But you're still a very, no pun intended, a very huge part of that movie.
yeah,
Like even though like you said, no speaking lines or anything else, just the sheer presence of you and your character. It's intimidating. Like you said, Matthew Lillard would probably like, holy crap, like not
yeah.
expecting that.
I remember they interviewed him in Fangoria, and one of the comments he said was, "I can't even eat in the lunch tent because every time I go in there, I get the big baby makes me sick because I'm sitting there, I still got puke all running down my face and everything, and I'm just sitting in there trying to eat my lunch, and he comes walking in, just sees." Bleh.
That's
And people,
amazing.
and that wasn't even really puke. It was like latex. It was all like plastic. It was all like painted onto me,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't come off. Whereas in Trick or Treat, to mention, I had actual puke because they wanted to make it look like I had been drinking and partying all night, and so then
Hmm.
I puked it all up. And so the scene where you see me all passed out, I've got leek soup and beer and pieces of wiener, and it was the smelliest, stinkiest thing you could imagine that was sitting on me all day.
So the closest thing to puke that you could actually get without puking.
well, well, no, you can get one step closer, and that is when they put all that stuff in storage and then they call you back 3.5 months later and they say, we're going to do some reshoots. And they bring you
Oh,
back. And the first thing they put on you is the same bib and the same outfit that still has the puke from 3.5 months earlier.
yeah, okay, you're right. That's
And
definitely
then they put a,
worse.
and then they put an application on my neck, big one where my neck was ripped open because what part of the reshoots was they wanted to have shots of the wolves attacking my neck and everything.
Yeah.
So they had these animatronic. I'll tell you, I've never been so scared in my life than to have those teeth of those wolves, those animatronic heads, and they're closing on your neck, opening on your neck, closing on your neck. And you're constantly looking over at the remote control guys over there going, "Yeesh, you better cut this down because
Please don't slip.
sorry, those are real looking teeth, and I don't need those actually coming into my neck." And then, of course, they didn't use any of that stuff. They just show me in the background dead. They don't show me getting killed. But yeah, so going back to 13 Ghosts, that was the best part was getting to be on set and do everything with the actors because I've done a lot of monster stuff where you're like part of the visual effects team and they're shooting you separately and then they're going to drop you in later. This way, at least you got to be on set with the actor. Same with for me at least with on Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed where I worked with Matthew Lillard again,
Yep.
got to be on set with him again. So, and both times he's never seen me as me because both shows, when he come to work, I was already halfway through the makeup process.
Yeah.
So what wasn't until the wrap party of Scooby Doo where I actually saw what Ernst looks like.
No, I've met Matthew Lillard a few times and we've actually talked about you too, and he's always said that you were good at what you did. And I was like, that's freaking amazing. Like, he's such a sweetheart too. Like,
Yeah.
nobody can hate that man because of just how genuine and nice he is and how highly he speaks of anybody that he's ever worked with.
Yeah.
And
I
I
saw
absolutely love that.
somebody sent me a clip from Cincinnati, one of the horror shows there, Horror Hound or whatever it's called. And he was doing the crowd work where he's walking around taking Q&A from people.
Mhm.
And they were asking about what was his favorite, which was his favorite ghost. And he said the big baby. And then he said, oh, and I don't know, does anybody here know that the big baby was also minor 49er, that's Ernst?
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this many years later, and he's still putting a shout out for me. So that's always nice. Yeah, he's one of the greatest guys I've ever worked with. He's so down to earth. He treats everybody on set the same. Doesn't matter what their position is. You can tell when someone just loves to work and just loves their job and just loves doing stuff and being with people. When I've seen clips of the different conventions and stuff, you see when somebody walks up to him at the table for 10 seconds or for 3 minutes, whatever amount of time that you spend with Matthew Lillard, you have his full attention.
Undivided. Yep.
You are the only one in the room.
It's
And
true.
yeah. And there's a lot of people where you can tell they don't really want to be at these conventions. Someone has talked them into being there. But Matthew's one of those that I think he would do it even if he didn't get paid. I think that it's just a way of staying in touch with everybody and getting to hear how much people love you and being able to say thank you and you're welcome.
Exactly. We are doing a year two show out here where we live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm the head of security for it. It's called Morgan Crypt Horror Fest. I want to get you out here. Like, I've already talked to the owners about it for year three next year.
Mm-hmm.
So me and you off screen will talk more about
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and see what we can get in order. But we would love to have you out here. Like, we
I
have
keep getting
plans.
I keep getting requests from festivals all over the world saying we want to get a 13 Ghost reunion. We want to get the
Absolutely.
ghosts together. Whoever does the first person to do that is gonna knock it off right because
It would be huge.
I think I'm not certain, but I think maybe the Lori who played my mother, I don't even think she's alive anymore. And some of the actors have left the industry. A few of them were never actors to start with,
Yeah.
like Daniel, who played the torso. He did some stunt work and what have you, but mainly because, when you need someone who doesn't have legs, you know, you can't really go to an actor.
Right. Exactly. That would had to have been CGI'd if not.
Yeah. Well, that the best part of it was that he wore a black, uh, he wore like a black nylon, a stocking over his head,
Oh
and
wow.
that's how they basically CGI'd his head off and had the open neck wound, so that he literally was just a torso. But yeah, on set he would be in a wheelchair, and then he would be walking around with a black stocking on his head. And but no, to do one of these shows, I personal appearance agent, I set him up with Herb, who plays the Hammer. So he did a few conventions last year. So the ghosts are slowly getting out there.
That's
I
awesome.
I I've been primarily focusing on having people come to me, because you can't go to every convention that's out there, and
Exactly.
you don't want to commit to something and then, because I follow I'm on a lot of the horror groups and a lot of the Facebook groups and what have you, and especially a lot of the convention stuff. I like to lurk.
Yeah.
I like to comment on 13 Ghosts articles, and I like to when someone posts something, I like to, and they'll post like some great child fan art or something. I like to always go, wow, I've never looked so good. It's always fun to see who pays attention. It's like, am I just a random guy on Instagram, or am I the guy that actually played the person you're drawing? It's always fun. You can tell when the person hasn't really looked to see who commented, because they'll just say like, thanks. Or someone will go, oh my God, I can't believe that one of the actors in my favorite movie just replied. And so I like to do that kind of stuff, lurking. And one thing that I've seen is people just hate it when actors drop out of conventions for whatever reason. And so I've always hated the thought of, signing up for a bunch of these and then having to back out of them. And it's like, it looks bad on the convention. It looks bad on the actor. But at the same time, it's like, it's in everybody's contract that, if I got to work, I got to work. I'd love to do nothing but go to these conventions, right? But, so what I've done in the last year and a half is I've made all my convention photos available on my Facebook page. So if anybody wants to have a signed photo from me for any one of these characters, they could just come straight to me rather than waiting for me to come to them. You
That's
don't get the
awesome.
you don't get the personal thing, but I'm still going to be chatting with you online. I'm still going to be talking to the
Exactly.
person. And it's what, $30 Canadian. So for 22 bucks American, I'll send you an 8x10, signed it, personalize it, and everything.
I'm gonna have to wind up getting one as well. Like that's get
And
added to the collection.
the funny part is that, you know, uh, I've gotten people scolding me. I've had people sending me tips because they're like, you're way undercharging. You could be selling these for a lot more. And it's like, you should be happy I'm only selling it for $22. Don't tell me to sell it for more.
Right.
I don't want to break people's banks. I just want people to have an experience. I want them to get a picture back from one of their actors in one of their favorite movies. To me, it's more about just making a connection with people than to make money off of it. The only reason I think people started selling them in the first place was because they started they started realizing that, wait a minute, I'm signing these things out of the kindness of my heart because a fan has asked for it, and then they just turn around and go and sell it on eBay for $100. I think people, especially management, started to realize, wait a minute, we're not getting a piece of that. We should be getting a piece of that. And I think
Right.
that's when they started selling autographs, because in the old days, people would I'd get emails, or I'd get an actual letter in the mail, and it'd say, hi, I was wondering if I could get a signed autographed photo. And it's like, yeah, okay, but just realize I'm the one paying for the photo. I'm the one paying for the postage. And, I don't have George Clooney money. So, be happy that if you get a 5x7, it's only because I could only afford a 5x7 and not an 8x10. And once people started paying for things, it was like, okay, now I can actually provide you with something uh nice, not just going down to the drugstore and getting a bunch of 4x6s developed on my camera. you know you know at the same time, I've had people, my wife and I went to visit her parents in Sarasota, Florida. So when we got to the Tampa airport, I had a guy chase me through the entire airport. At first, my wife says, I think that guy's following us. And I don't think he's following us. And then next thing I know, I go to the washroom and he comes into the washroom behind me. And that's when my wife was pretty sure that, yeah, he was following me. And it was because he recognized me from 13 Ghosts, but he didn't have the courage to say anything. So he had to, I guess he needed to make sure for 45 minutes as he followed me around the airport.
Yeah.
But, okay. So we're not going to shut down here in a second.
No, that's what I was currently in the process of
Oh,
doing.
okay. So in the middle of the airport, he just dumps out his entire duffel bag, drops all his clothes, his belongings, everything in the airport because he's looking for a pen so I can sign something for him. And it's always when you're not used to being hounded like real celebrities where they've got paparazzi around them all the time kind of
Yeah.
thing. You don't know if you're dealing with a stalker, if you're dealing with a crazy person, or you're dealing with a fan. Because when it comes out of the blue like that, it's only like, once in a while. It's a little scary. It
Right.
doesn't matter that I'm over 400 pounds and 6'6". I'm still a little kid on the inside.
Yeah, luckily I find it, given like how many shows I go to and everything else and how many celebrities that I've interviewed, like luckily the horror community seems to be not that crazy where they're gonna like be stalking people or anything,
Yeah.
thankfully, because that would give us such a horrible reputation. Because like there's so many people in the world that don't understand horror or the
Mhm.
horror community. So if like people like that were doing that, that would
Yeah.
just be horrendous for us.
But yeah, so it was 13 Ghosts was a big one. It was a hard one. And just to end it, because I always like to tag my 13 Ghost stories with this. The scene at the end of 13 Ghosts when the house is blown up and the ghosts have been released from their traps, and you
Yep.
see us wandering off into the woods. You see us leaving the house, and there's that
Yeah, like
shot where,
freedom.
yeah, freedom, and you see like the jackals dancing and everything, and we're
Yeah.
like slowly going into the woods. That was shot on 9/11, the actual 9/11.
Wow.
We got called in, like I told you, they wanted to do some reshoots, which was like a month before the film was to be released. They called us in. They wanted to do some reshoots. One of the things they wanted to add was that shot of us, because that wasn't in the original film that we shot. The shot of us being free and leaving the house. So we shot that in a studio on a pickup day. The pickup day was 9/11. So it was trippy to start with because we're all dressed up as the ghost. I'm in my underwear. I got my hair and everything. And then they'd yell, cut. And we'd all huddle around a monitor and we'd be watching the news and seeing what's going on in New York. And then they'd
Jesus.
go, okay, we got to go back to the first positions, and everybody goes back, and you wipe that out of your brain and now act crazy and act like a ghost and do all your ghost stuff. And because the director of photography, a bunch of the executives, they were up just for the day from the States. And now all of a sudden they don't know if they're ever going to get to go back to the States. None of the planes are working. So it was a very stressful day.
I
And
believe
that
it.
was the day when there's that one shot when the jackal goes after Shannon Elizabeth's character and he gets her up against the wall and he starts just raking her,
Slashing and all that.
slashing her. And there was one quick shot where he slashes her breast and you see her breast reveal itself. That was a body double. That was shot on the day that we did the pickups on 9/11 because I guess they decided they needed to have some Shannon Elizabeth nudity in the film. It's not like you have a woman walking around the entire movie completely naked.
Exactly right. And it's like if they wanted that, they have American Pie.
Yeah. And the fact that it wasn't even her to start with, it
Right.
just kills me.
I bet that's gonna hurt a lot of people that thought that it was her. Sorry, guys.
I'm sorry.
Deal with it.
That's when you know all the little secrets. Like, for example, there's famous photo. There's two photos. A famous photo online that you've seen on all the different horror sites where it looks like a class photo, and it's all the ghosts. We're outside behind the studio and we're
Yeah.
all posing for our photos. And um, if you look at, there's two photos. There's one where it's just the ghosts, and then there's another one where you see the ghosts, but then you see KB effects and all the makeup people and our costume people standing around us, and it's like a big class photo. Well, in the one photo, you have the little boy with the arrow through his head. Can't
Mhm.
remember what his actual character name was, but you have him in the photo with the ghosts. But then in the one that has uh, all of the makeup people in it as well, it's not the little boy, it's the girl, the woman that would play him whenever the Angry Princess was on set, because you have a completely nude woman on set. You can't have the 10-year-old boy on set. So whenever you see the little boy and the Angry Princess on set together, like mostly when we're on the Zodiac, the spinny wheel
Yeah, the
thing,
Sten
and
one.
yeah, mostly when all the ghosts are there and we're spinning around, that's usually the woman who was a stunt woman, a very short stunt woman who was made up to look like the little boy. So it's always funny when you see people refer to that one picture and they refer to the little boy in the corner with his arrow in his head, and it's like that's not even the boy. That's a girl stunt woman. It's his photo double. But things you don't think about when you watch the movie. You're like, well, that's a naked woman. They can't have the 10-year-old boy on set when she's on set. Yeah, no one's worrying about me in my underwear across from the naked woman.
Oh man, that's
Yeah. We shared a trailer. We had the same makeup trailer, so there was a trailer that had two beds in it, and the one bed she was lying on it, and on the other bed I was lying on it, and between us there was like a shower curtain,
yeah.
and we had a husband and wife team doing our makeup. So he'd be over there doing her makeup, and she'd be over here doing my makeup, and I kept thinking, wow, who pulled the straw on that one? How did the husband get stuck with her, and how did she get stuck with me?
Oh
But yeah, that was some grody. I mean, her makeup, all those slices. And the thing that really killed me was that she had the one slice that went right across her breast and cut her nipple in half.
yeah, I saw that one. Like, oh, like they did detail to that too, because like at first, like if you're watching the movie, you won't recognize it.
No,
Like if you actually look, it is sliced in half, and I was like,
yeah,
oh man, like that hurt just looking at.
yeah, yeah. About as much as the lawyer, which that's still one of my favorite effects. Is like, where's the
That
lawyer? Oh yeah, he split.
literally.
And
That
also,
reminds me, do you remember there was a movie that came out called The Cell, and there was a similar scene with like the
mm-hmm,
horse where it was like just all
mm-hmm,
that glass and then it
mm-hmm,
separated it all and it was just like little pieces. I was
yeah.
like, oh, that was so good. It reminded me of that. I was like, that is amazing. Like,
Well, this also in 13 goes when the um, Embeth Davids's character, Kalina, I think it is, she gets trapped between the walls
mhm.
after she's realized that he screwed her around,
Yeah,
and she gets squeezed in those walls. Well, they shot that much further than it went. Like the special effect, I remember because I was there when they shot it. The special effect, I mean, they pushed that thing right together, and but they cut away from it before it got to its full effect,
yeah.
and probably wouldn't have given them an R rating, probably given them an X rating or something, because you actually saw her head completely pancake,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was just just exploded. So always a funny thing when you do these films is like to see how much of what they shot is going to actually make it into the final film, especially with these special effects laden stuff. You never know how much of the actual effect they're going to show. Lots of times it's just a quick insert that they drop it in. But when you're on set, the thing goes on they shoot the whole scene and you see the length of the whole thing. And sometimes it's like 45 seconds versus, the 2 seconds you see in the film. And you always think, how are they going to fit that in? Or, you'll see something, you're going, that looks so fake. There's no way that's going to look real. And then you see it in context in the film, and you're like, yeah, that looks real. So yeah, 13 Ghosts. It's amazing to me. 13 Ghosts has become almost more popular with each year.
It's true. And like we talked about earlier, now with it possibly having a series, I believe they said it's supposed to be on Netflix or something.
Well, that's one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it,
Yeah.
because they've been talking about this since the film. It's like, about 5 years ago, there was that meme that went around that said, Netflix, if you're listening, you should do a series, a 13 episode series with each episode on the backstory. Even when I saw the DVD and I saw those ghost files, I thought, man, if they had only taken a minute from each ghost file and put that into the film, it would have just, the film would have just been that much fuller. It would have just felt more complete to get to know the ghosts. You got to know a little more about the Juggernaut at the beginning. You got to see a little bit of his backstory.
Exactly.
And that just made his character that much better. And I think if we had gotten to see even just a taste, rather than them just like flipping through the book and having him tell the story of the ghosts, it would have been better to see some of the backstories. But like I said, I think they created all those after the film, so there was no backstories to cut to. I don't think they'd actually thought those things out. But everyone's always saying, "Are you going to be involved? Are you going to be?" I
should be.
Yeah, I should be. Yes, I should, because it's those ghosts that people want to see. It's not just any ghosts. And if they're just going to recreate 13 new ghosts and create new backstories for them, that's not what people have been wanting.
Absolutely not.
Those specific ghosts and those specific stories is what people want to see. And if they want to see the Great Child again, I'll throw on my underwear. I'll be the first in line to, he's 27 years older as a ghost, so he's also 200 and something pounds lighter as a ghost. But if they can build bodysuits for the other ghosts, they could build a bodysuit for me and make me bigger again.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what they need to do. I think if they are going to do this series, they need to bring as many of you back as possible, make it about you guys. Like I like the idea of like an hour-long episode, 13 episodes, an hour long each one, giving a full backstory on
everyone.
See
them when they were actually humans.
Exactly.
See how they became ghosts and all that. I'd like to see what backstory they finally decide to go with the Great Child, and then get to see that play out, rather than just seeing the stories that, if you watch the backstories with F. Murray Abraham, you can tell it's all like stock footage from different stuff that they've just tacked together and created a story out of it. But it'd be nice to see what the backstory that they actually come up with for these characters. And I would love to be part of that. But like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. I've been in contact with one of the people that's listed as one of the creators, as one of the people that's pitching this to Dark Castle and to Sony and what have you. So I've already said, I'm here. Here's who I am and here's where I am. So we'll see what happens with that. That would be, Netflix or whoever pick something like that, Shudder or Hulu.
Shudder would be a big one, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be the first one in line to help out with that. But we'll see. Like I said, if they decide to do a story with 13 other ghosts, just make another movie. Just make another story altogether. There's no
exactly.
Point. So for all the hundreds of people who have, every time that article or that meme or anything to do with that pops up, I start getting those sent to me. I get them shared. I get my email is filled with people going, "What did you know? Can you, and my name will be in the comments. Somebody will forward it to thing. They'll share it. They'll say, "Can you tell us what's the?" Like, man, I wish I could tell you, but I know about as much as you do at this point, because nobody's contacted me. I'm just a guy who did a movie 20 something years ago at this point.
And it
So
became one of the biggest movies, especially in our community. It's a massive,
yeah,
massive movie.
and I mentioned the other film I did with Matthew, Scooby Doo 2. It's the
Yep.
same with both of those films. 13 Ghosts and Scooby Doo 2 especially have just
They blew
grown
up.
every year since then. It's like they're more popular now than they were, both of them, when they came out, because there were a lot of people that questioned the 13 Ghosts or questioned the school, like why there's no point, we don't need this and all that. And I think what hurt 13 Ghosts was that it came out so close to 9/11, and I don't think people were ready to go to the theaters. And the people who were ready to go, there was also my problem that I had with the film was that its editing is so fast, it's so frenetic that when you see it in a big theater, like when I saw the premiere, it was at one of like a massive screen, and I had such a headache because first of all, the movie is loud, and the cutting of it, the editing is so quick that when you see it on a massive screen, you never get a chance to focus on all the information in front of you. It's like you're looking here, and by the time you turn your head over here, they've cut to something else. So you feel like you're missing half of it. And I think when that film came out, I've said that dozens of times, when that film came out on DVD and all of a sudden it was on your TV screen, and you could see the whole screen, you could see everything. Now it was like an MTV music video where the cutting was more comfortable because the screen was smaller.
Yeah.
And now that people are watching it on their phones, that film must just fly by because now it's all perfectly in your vision.
Right.
But yeah, I think as the screens have gotten smaller, it's become better to watch that film. And I've heard people think that I'm nuts, but I truly believe that the cutting was so fast. And just to go back to the backstories, I think if they had added a minute here of this ghost and a minute here of that ghost backstory into the film, then they could have cut out a lot of, like right now, when you watch the film, there's sequences where it's like, and now it's a minute of a slow pan down an empty hallway. Another hallway. Ooh, look at this hallway is empty too. It's almost like somebody in production said, we need another 4 minutes. Okay, I have 4 minutes of pans of empty hallways. And every time I see that, I think that's 4 minutes of backstory you could have stuck in the film.
Exactly.
But those are my critiques only because I look at empty scenes like that and think, I'm not in that. There's 4 minutes wasted. You could add me in there.
Hey, if anybody's allowed to critique their movie, I mean, come on, it's you. You were in it, so by all means, critique the hell out of it. A few more questions for you because I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Do you have anything currently in the works that you are working on or possibly going to be starting on?
Yeah, it's been crazy because we had COVID for the longest time, and then that was followed up with 2 separate strikes.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's been a little very, and it's been very hard, especially for me, because being someone who has such a presence, 6'6", over 400 pounds, when I walk into an audition room,
people notice.
I duck when I come in, there's a whole presentation, right? Well, since COVID, everything has been self-tape. Everything has been presented yourself. And now all of a sudden, I'm just a head in a screen. I'm just I've lost the advantage that I had, which was the overall presence. And so I haven't gotten a lot of work since COVID because of that. But I did just before I did it was during COVID, but it was Crawl Space with Henry Thomas from E.T. Nice. I was the third lead. It was a big Paramount Pictures production. I think it came out on Paramount Plus. And so if anybody wants to see the great child put the boots to Elliot from E.T. for the whole movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, me and Bradley Stryker play 2 bad guys who are trying to get the money that we found that has been hidden in this house where Henry Thomas just happens to be a plumber who's in the crawl space doing his job, and he finds the money, and we want the money from him, and we got to get into the crawl space, and he's got to somehow get out of the crawl space. And you know, horror and thriller ensues, and a little comedy because I can't not add comedy into stuff. I was just going to mention that before I forgot. The 13 Ghosts. The best direction I got from Steve Beck was when you see me come around the corner, when Matthew comes around the corner and I'm standing at the end of the hall with my axe and everything. Steve says, "Okay, I want you to scream bloody murder, but I don't want you to open your mouth." So now when you watch the film, you'll hear it, and you won't know what you're hearing, but it's so every time you see the great child, just imagine it's me screaming as hard as I can without opening my mouth, and I'll tell you that'll make you squirrely after a while.
That's awesome.
So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, I did a friend, Dion Copland, and her producer, Louise Weird. They did a big action thriller road movie called Riding Shotgun. And it's almost like a grindhouse film. They shot it on 16 millimeter film, so it has that grain to it and everything.
Nice.
And they asked me, because they're huge fans of 13 Ghosts, they asked me to do a cameo in the film because, I guess when you're a filmmaker, you get to a place where you're getting to make a film. What are you going to do? You're going to put people from your favorite movies in it, right?
Exactly.
So we got that coming out. I just did a music video that is on YouTube. It's for Melody Horror, one word. And it's me in all my glory for 5 minutes. And that was a fun one. So if you want to see me in a video that doesn't make a lot of sense,
What's the best kind?
What video makes sense? It makes sense to the people making it. That's all that matters. But yeah, Melody Horror with Mello, and Mello is the woman that I'm in the video with. She's the one who sings the song. And I got another video coming out. It's funny. It's like all of a sudden I start doing music videos again. I hadn't done music videos since the 90s when I did one for Our Lady Peace.
I remember it.
Superman's Dead. And I got to play one of the circus freaks. And funny enough, that was the first time I worked with John DeSantis, who played the Juggernaut. He's in that music video as well. He played the tall man, and I played the strong man, and we're both circus freaks in that. So that was a 97, so like 3 years before my brain died again. 13 Ghosts. Yeah. So sometimes I don't even know the names of things I'm in. I lose. People ask me questions about what films I've been in, and it's almost like
too many.
Here's my IMDb link. Figure it out. I don't know
exactly.
So yeah, I don't really have much coming up as far as projects. Like I said, I got the cameo, I got 2 music videos, and I'm still pushing Crawl Space because that was the last big thing that I did.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah. When you see, like I said, it's there's like an homage to Wolverine, where Henry Thomas uses a bunch of his plumber tools and creates like a Wolverine hand. So he comes at me. We had our big fight.
Sold.
So I spent like over a week on my hands and knees, and when you're my size and you're in your 50s, let me tell you, it's been a long time since I've been walking around on my hands and knees. And to spend an entire week on your hands and knees in a crawl space, I'm still going to physio 3 years later. Let's just say. And both Henry Thomas and I, at the end of each day, we would stand there, we'd lift our shirts up, and the production people would basically coat us in what's that stuff called, honey? The stuff we put out for the bruises.
Oh, yes.
Arnica. They basically just covered our bodies in arnica because both Henry Thomas and I looked like Dalmatians by the end of this. We just had like big patches of bruise over our entire body. So yeah, that was a fun one. But just to briefly mention, Trick or Treat was a Warner Brothers film as well. And they thought it would be fun they needed someone to be Anna Paquin's blind date. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, let's have the guy who played the great child. We'll have him there as the giant baby, and the people who get it. And if you know, you know. But it's just a funny reveal for me because when she's on the phone with her sister, she's like, "Did you find someone?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Is it young?" And they cut to me with the bib and everything on. And funny story that goes along with that, my wife got a phone call one day and someone was looking for me. They wanted to talk to me. And she says, "I'm sorry, my husband's out right now getting fitted for a diaper and a bib."
Oh
But to
man,
me in a studio office with my legs in the air, lying on my back on the floor as they're measuring the diaper for me. So
that's so great.
when you've got more than one baby on your resume, that's always that's always fun. It tells you the kind of career you've had.
No, and you honestly, you've had a pretty damn amazing career. Like I said, going over everything that you've been through. Like I have a lot of what you've been through. Like Valentine, I have that. I have Trick or Treat. I have 13 Ghosts. I have the ABCs of Death 2, which you were also in. Like there's
Yeah.
just so much stuff. I have Scooby Doo
If
2.
you go through my scene of the torture porn scene in ABCs of Death 2, you'll see uh sometimes as an actor, you have to learn not to request things or suggest things because sometimes they'll take you up on it.
Hmm.
And they did a scene in ABCs of Death where the Tristan Risk plays the character who has all of the tentacles that come out of her vagina because
Hmm.
and she her tentacles go down the mouth of the one camera guy and rip his penis out, comes back out through his mouth, and now it comes back over to the other side of the room. And I said to her, "Wouldn't it be funny if I basically the thing is wrapped around the tentacle is wrapped around my arm and it's forcing the penis down my throat?" And the Saskas go, "Oh, would you do that?"
Like done.
Okay, so if you go through that thing, and because it's done with a strobe effect, it's hard to see a lot of what's happening. But if you go through very slow and frame by frame, you'll just see me going. So it's
Oh no.
don't suggest things unless you're willing to do them. And sadly,
Noted.
I'm willing to do them.
It makes it that much more memorable though, right? Okay, two
Yeah.
more questions.
Yes.
This one is an important one. This one is like, I ask this of everybody. What would you like to say to all of your fans who are going to be watching this interview right now?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for supporting the horror industry. When things are up and things are down, there's always in the business, there's always the horror fans, and it's nice to know that there's a family of support out there. When things have been down the last 3 years with my career, I've been able to lean on the horror groups on Facebook and what have you, and I've built a family around me. I've a lot of horror fans and friends. Whereas we've taken a term from Schitt's Creek, where she referred to them as her friends, and so
Fans.
that's what my wife's always joking with me. She goes, "Oh, you got another email from a Fran." And because, you get to the point where you have enough contact with people, they've moved beyond a fan. That may have been how they came into your life, but they become friends. Even if they're just acquaintances, they're still your Facebook friends. And I just want to say thank you to whoever's touched base with me online. And if you'd like to have a photo of the great child or the giant baby or even Bonzo, the killer clown from Dead Rising 2,
Yeah,
even from my X-Files. I was in the Postmodern Prometheus episode, the black and
you
white
were.
episode, the famous one.
Yep.
And the barn's on fire. Uh, if you'd like to have an 8x10, come to my Facebook page. It's at CE Harth on Facebook. And the first thing pinned to the top is all the photos I have available. It's $30, which is Canadian. So it's like $22 American, and shipping's included. So I can personalize it. I can sign it and say thank you for all the support and for being there for us in the horror industry. And just thanks for checking us out.
That's amazing. And on behalf of everybody who's going to watch this video, because I'm going to share the hell out of it once my editor is done with it, I wanted to say thank you as well. Like, we appreciate what you do. We appreciate all the hours that you guys put into everything. It's a craft. I know it is daunting on your bodies and everything else. So, just on behalf of the horror community, I wanted to say thank you personally.
Thank you.
And the last question, I end this with everybody. What's your favorite scary movie?
What's my favorite scary movie?
Yep,
Boy,
I'm putting you on the spot.
put me on the spot. Well, let's see. The first one that made the biggest impression on me was a movie from '74 called It's Alive.
Nice.
My parents went to see it at the drive-in, and they put their 4-year-old to sleep in the back seat. And of course, as soon as the movie starts, the 4-year-old is up and hanging over the back seat watching. And I don't I didn't even know what movie it was. I didn't even know what in my memory. I didn't even know that it was a movie. I just remember the images from that thing stuck in my brain. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s when I finally put it together. I was like, oh, wait, that was a movie. Oh my God. Because I didn't know if it had happened to me, if it was a dream or what. But as far as scary movies now, as a grown up, as an adult, oh my God, can you think of anything? You know the movies man, that's such a I have so many horror. I got walls full of films here. I'm trying to go down. That's the more films you watch, the harder these questions get. So
It's
when
true.
someone says, "What's your favorite movie?" Oh, what's the scariest movie? Man, I I remember what's that?
Australian thing
Oh,
we watched.
yeah. What the hell was that called? You probably know better than I do. Australian movie. It was her birthday. It's in the kitchen. The woman she has a little birthday party and she invites this guy to her birthday party and then her family end up turning on him and I love you to death. No,
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the
can't,
name of it to save my life, but I know what you're talking about.
that movie just stuck with me. And uh, I'll say for also the house that Jack built. That one stuck with me. Lars von Trier is one of those. My wife, we watched Dancer in the Dark, and she still has never seen the end of that movie because she went into convulsions. She
Oh,
got
wow.
so physically ill that she ran into the other room and she just could not even finish the movie and never will watch the rest of the movie or
Jeez.
or David Morse, the actor. She just never wants to see him again because she made him so sick in that film. But I wish I could give you a clearer answer. There's so many films, and I know as soon as I say bye, a
You're like,
thousand
damn it, I
films will.
remember.
Damn it. But mm,
It's still some good answers. Like
uh,
it's always a tricky one, but that's why I like doing it. That's why I like throwing them at it at last minute. 'Cause it's like, come on.
because a lot of horror films are not scary, but I love
Exactly.
them. They're just gory.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a good thriller. But that's why I'm racking my brain is trying to think of where a film scared the living bejesus out of me. The best answer I can give you is when I was, however old when this movie came out, 11, 12, the Amityville Horror, the
Oh,
one
the
with
original.
with James Brolin, the original. I
Yep.
remember when they went, there was a scene where in the basement there was like the pit of hell or something was growing out of the one brick wall in the basement or something. And I remember in the theater I had bought a O. Henry bar and the black little bottom cardboard insert the chocolate bar sits on in the package. I remember on the perforation I had ripped out a little slit, and I remember watching like half the movie in the theater through the bottom of my O. Henry bar package and the little slit because I figured it's not as scary if I can only see this much of it. So that'll be my official answer for now. Is the original Amityville Horror when you're a 12-year, 11-year-old, whatever I was, that scared the living bejesus out of me.
That's a great answer, and honestly, that's also a first answer too. Because everybody that I've interviewed, they say Exorcist, or they'll say something along those lines. I've never gotten the original Amityville Horror, so I'm extremely excited about that.
Well, the fact that you mentioned The Exorcist now, it just reminds me, my dad, when that film came out, my dad took my mom to it. But what he didn't tell her was earlier in the day, he had went to Radio Shack and got a little Tandy tape recorder.
Mhm.
And so when they went to see the film, when she's going through all the yeah and all those things and everything, my dad pressed the tape recorder and recorded all those sounds. And then later on that night, he put the tape recorder under her side of the bed,
Oh no.
pressed play, and then ran back to his side of the bed. And
Oh,
my
best.
mom, my mom was Livid.
That is the best joke ever. That's amazing.
Long before you could just press record on your cell phone, you had to actually plan this stuff
Get
out.
the tape recorder, have the little tape in there. Oh, that's great. I love that. That's another great story.
What's that?
Allison's birthday or Wolf Creek?
Oh, Wolf Creek was another one.
Wolf Creek, that's another good one. I know that's like an Australian one too.
Yeah.
Was Wolf Creek. That's a great movie. The first one. The kind of other ones were kind of like, eh.
I haven't seen Wolf Creek 2 or anything. But the first one, I was like, what the? It was like one of those films you come across at night, you just start watching, you don't know what it is. And then I was like, what the living
and
hell?
then you get sucked into it.
And, to the point where because you don't know any of these people, because they're all Australian actors, it almost comes across like a documentary. You don't know what you're watching. It's like, God damn, this is a scary thing. So, yeah, this list could go on forever. I could email you back tomorrow with 20 other films, but the ones that I've mentioned are the ones that first came to mind. But yeah, that Australian one, man, I wish I could. No, that's not it. No. I know you know the film.
No, when you described it, I know it. I just can't think of the name of it.
I could just see the scene. They're having a birthday party for her, and the father's there, and I think the father's also her lover, and the guy that she invites to this birthday, the whole family ends up turning on him.
I'm gonna have my audience answer in the comments. Like, we're gonna find out, because you can't remember the name, I can't remember the name, your lovely wife can't remember the name.
No.
So we will send these people on a mission, guys. Find the answer to this and put it in the comments, please. I'll greatly appreciate it, because if not, this is going to be eating at me forever until I can figure it out.
There you go.
But again, I wanted to wrap things up. I wanted to say thank you again, sir. I greatly appreciate it. This was an absolute joy. Like, thank you for spending, like, normally I try to pitch like 15 to 30 minutes. We went well over that. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you staying here longer with us. It means a lot to me.
Good. No, I got lots of stories, and I like to ramble. So I apologize if I went on too.
We might have to do a part 2 or part 3. I want all the stories.
Well, there's lots of films we never even touched on. So.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to. We'll definitely do like a part 2.
The Loved Ones. Sorry, sorry guys. I already
beat you to the punch.
She beat you to the punch. Yeah, The Loved Ones. That's
The Loved Ones.
Stuck with me. Still has. Apparently, the title didn't stick with me.
Right. Well, now we're just if anybody hasn't seen it, we're gonna have them go watch it now. So there we go. That works. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Until the next one, this is Jeff the Horror Fiend saying later.